Hey everyone, this is Justin Goodhart. Welcome to the first episode of the Move Smart podcast. I'm here with my good friend, training partner, co-host Sean Mapoles. He's a great gymnastics coach, a rock climber. He's extremely dedicated to his movement practice. We've actually taught some workshops together, and he's just about to make the leap into full-time coaching and teaching, which is super exciting. In this episode, we're going to give a little introduction, talk about the purpose of the podcast, give some background on me and some background on Sean, some of our influences, mentors, things like that. I'm going to talk about the Movers Conundrum, or basically figuring out what to practice and what to ignore, and why learning to ignore information is essential to success in training and in life. We're going to talk about what our personal movement practices look like, what our goals are. Sean's going to briefly touch on his sort of 4 pillars of health. Going to discuss why movement is prehab, rehab, and healing. Then a little bit about my own sort of existential training crisis and how I'm struggling or have struggled to fit together all the pieces of movement and training. Then we'll get into movement sessions as a work of art, as a complete unit in themselves. Going to talk about building your own movement practice, and then areas where we see people needing the most help. All right, so diving right in. The purpose of this podcast is really just to bring in thought leaders to give world-class tips in movement, mobility, strength training, gymnastics, parkour, primal nutrition. Really, there's no rules as long as it helps you be a better person, like be stronger, be healthier, reduce your stress levels. I really just want to teach people how to build a movement practice, how to maximize their strength gains, improve recovery, customize nutrition, learn meditation, whatever it is, whatever those weak links are. We really just want to help you guys fix them so you can really move to the next level. I guess sort of my motto, and I came across this actually when I was at a MoveNet seminar, like probably last spring, and this is sort of an adaptation, but I want people to be healthy, to be strong. I want them to be strong, to be useful, and I want people to live long, to really maximize that usefulness, because as far as I'm concerned, the longer and stronger you're able to pursue your higher purpose, the better every single person on the planet will become. So I hope you'll enjoy this episode as we get things off the ground, and hopefully, it'll be a work in progress. We're striving to improve every episode. And then I've got my good buddy and co-host Sean Mapoles with me. So go ahead and say hi, Sean.
Hey guys, this is Sean Mapoles. Just to reiterate what Justin said, we're here to bring together leaders of the industry and consolidate best practices for moving. This is a movement podcast, and my background specifically is around gymnastics, and that's how I was first introduced to Justin and to really moving in general.
Yeah, so Sean and I actually, we went through this, basically probably one of the only ones that I know of in the nation, this adult gymnastics teacher training program here in Denver, Colorado, and it was really eye-opening for both of us. Sean, what was your movement background before that, though?
Before that, I worked with Orens, who was the instructor of that gymnastics program, and who's also one of the lead instructors for gymnastic bodies. So Orens and I worked together for a couple years, and that training was a specific feeder program to become a coach for Orens. So that's why I was excited to jump in there. But I should also say that before I met Orens, I was just another guy in the gym, fucking around with weights, trying to lift heavy things and I really didn't know what I was doing. As I look back, I had a couple bodybuilding books.
Yeah, didn't we all?
Wasn't following the tempo advice. I was trying to look big and act tough. And gymnastics is a very humbling sport because you either follow the protocol or you get injured. And you make no gains whatsoever. So working with Orens and working in gymnastics in specifics has been really awakening for me.
Yeah. And I can really relate to that. I know, like, when I started moving away, because I started, like, in high school, my cousin was, like, a state champion wrestler, and he came out one summer. I think it was my freshman year of high school, and he just got me going on the weights, and that was kind of my thing. I never really played team sports or anything like that. And I did that through college, got into CrossFit, and then started getting more into movement stuff sort of out of necessity. I worked this job up in Alaska that I basically had no equipment, and they had this patio up on the top deck with like basically a pull-up bar, but it was really meant to, like, you know, as a covering for the back patio. So that's all I had to train with the entire summer. And so on my break, I was like researching like bodyweight exercise stuff, and I stumbled upon Ido Portal's training. And I mean, really, really kind of the rest is history. That was actually what caused me to like try to look up an adult gymnastics facility, which fortunately I live in probably one of the only places in the country that has a dedicated adult gymnastics place, and yeah, the rest really took off. And I gotta reiterate what Sean said, like going from like basic strength training, basic bodyweight stuff to like gymnastics is like you're gonna eat a big slice of humble pie every training session. Like, no questions asked, but you'll be much better for it. You'll be a much better person, much better mover. So, Sean, talk to me a little bit about then what some of your influences, whether coaches you've worked with directly or just books that have influenced you, people that have maybe been your mentors from afar, and how they've helped you to develop more. Because by the way, congratulations to Sean. He just got his one-arm chin not too long ago. That's been a goal a long time in the making. So congrats to him for that. Everybody give him a round.
I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of people don't realize how ridiculously difficult it is to get a one-arm chin. And it's like years. It takes years of practice and years of dedication. So that was a big accomplishment, and that was on my list for 2014.
Awesome.
So my background is in traditional gymnastics, strength and conditioning. So I actually don't focus on what a lot of younger, like children, do with gymnastics. I'm not a big tumbler, although I do enjoy tumbling. But I focus a lot on gymnastics, strength and conditioning, composed of front lever planche, muscle ups, like working to basically stabilize the glenohumeral joint and build muscle, functional muscle.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to gymnastics by Oren Slagman, who basically travels the world with Christopher Sommer, the junior Olympic gymnastic coach. So if you're a male gymnast in the USA and you want to compete for Olympic gold, you're involved in that program. Like, that is the level of intensity that we're talking about here. So Oren's introduced me to the field of gymnastics, and since then I've done training with Ido Portal, online coaching. I've opened up my own personal training practice out of San Francisco. I teach workshops for rock climbers that want to develop power and basically open up their rock climbing game a little bit. And I also own a supplement company, redrevive.com. Awesome.
Yeah. I've tried some of that, the Red Revive. I don't remember all the ingredients, but there's some really good stuff in there. It's definitely a great product. All right. And so for me, a lot of you guys know, maybe you've seen on my website that basically after I discovered Ido Portal, I went nuts with just different. I got my hands on every book I could, every training certification, every like movement-based perspective I could. Plus, I had saved up a bunch of money from working on these boats up in Alaska, so I had the ability to really pursue that. And so let's see, I went through like MoveNat, well, MoveNet 1, 2, and level 3. Even I went to the first level 3 with Erwan and Vic back, I think, again last year sometime. I went through the adult gymnastics training program here in Denver. This last summer, I went to and trained with Ido in Berlin for 5 days, which was really, really an amazing experience. And then again to the movement camp in Singapore. So he's really shaped and informed and given me some powerful tools for how to approach movement and fitness or fitness. Oh God, please forgive me. Please forgive me for using that word if you hear this, Ida. So I also, I went through Poliquin stuff. So the biosignature and then the PICP, levels 1 and 2. I hope to make it back. I think they're still doing coming out with some really awesome strength training courses. So, and it was so much information that I struggled to really integrate it and put it into practice. But, I will say, like, as far as big picture, intelligent, progressive, and results driven training, like Ido and Charles Poliquin, and I'm actually reading this book about Bruce Lee, like, they're probably some of the few I've ever heard of who could transcend their disciplines, who could transcend sort of the mindsets they came up with, right? Ido's got a background in capoeira. Charles has a strength training background. Bruce Lee, martial arts. But these guys, like, they were able to learn these skills that transcended their disciplines. They had all these tools in the toolbox, these training tools, and they actually used them all and used them intelligently. Like, I know very few people who do that, and I still struggle to do that. Right? I know I could modify your strength program in 100 different ways, but doing that intelligently, progressively, applied over time, is really the magic of it, and not forgetting all the valuable things that are in that toolbox. So those three have been a huge inspiration for me.
And I like what you're talking about, Justin. For me, it's like the Movers Conundrum, that there are a million ways to move. So we have this choice, this unlimited choice, to say, how am I going to move today? And maybe this is something that you and I deal with because we love it. We love to move. But I think in this industry in particular, there's a lot of different opinions on what is the best way to develop strength, what is the best way to de-stress, the best way to eat.
Yeah.
And it creates a lot of issues for people out there that are just getting started.
Yeah, it really does, and it's hard. I mean, really, that's the world we live in, though, is this world where there's so much information that it's hard to separate the signal from the noise, to just separate this crazy clamor of information from really what's useful to us. And I think people that really have success in their training and their nutrition and their lifestyle, they actually probably ignore most of what's out there and figure out and find like a few key principles and just apply them relentlessly. And I've seen that again and again, like knowing something that you don't apply is functionally useless, right? And so actively cutting out distraction and what's useless in our training and our nutrition and lifestyle, like, that's the hard part, but that's really the skill for the world we live in. So Sean, talk to me then a little bit about what your training looks like right now. What goals are you working toward? How are you approaching it? We can get into more specifics, but I'll just let you answer that.
Well, I'm on vacation right now, so.
Vacation, and that means climbing 3 days in a row, strength training outside of that, gymnastics classes. So that's
this is my bliss right now, man. So I'll give you my philosophy on training, and then I'll tell you what I'm up to in particular. So I'm kind of a 4 pillars of health guy. That is sleep, stress, food, and exercise. Usually in that order. Because if you're not sleeping, you're stressed. If you're stressed, you're making dietary modifications unknowingly. If you're not eating properly, you're not maximizing your time spent exercising. So
yeah, I like that.
I take on movement holistically. Now, what I'm doing in particular right now is very much focused on amplifying my power as a rock climber and my skills as a mover. So, and I pepper in gymnastics because I think it's excellent for enhancing my moving abilities and my climbing abilities. So my normal week looks like I do 5 to 7 days of moving with concentrations of 3 days, 2 to 3 days of climbing, 1 day outdoor, 2 days at least in the gym. I do gymnastics on my off days, segmenting bent arm strength and straight arm strength. Usually a little more straight arm strength since I'm doing so much brachiating with rock climbing anyway.
Yeah.
So trying to counterbalance all of the time I'm spent basically in internal rotation with more stability work, which is extremely difficult when it's isolated properly.
So are you doing any more supplemental prehab, rehab, or lower body strength training? Do you do any work with barbells right now or anything like that?
For me, everything's integrated. Prehab and rehab is part of everything I do. I don't segment. I don't take days specifically for prehab unless I'm injured. I try to incorporate those type of exercises into my daily routine so I don't become injured and need to take off elongated periods of time just dedicated to prehab.
And I think that's smart, and that makes me think. I was thinking about writing this blog post. I haven't got around to it, but basically the idea that movement in itself is prehab. Movement is healing. Movement is rehab. Which is more interesting and useful? Would you rather go through a series of boring PT wrist exercises, or would you rather maybe learn to do some juggling or learn to use a bow staff? That's what I've been thinking about lately, is that to prevent injury, move. And then to heal from injury, move, and that may mean a specific movement discipline. So oh shoot, I just injured my ankle. Maybe I should spend some time. For me, I play hacky sack or foot bag, and it requires all sorts of crazy ankle and knee articulation. So maybe learning to do that, or some sort of martial arts where you're kicking, or maybe dance. Would you rather do a boring ankle prehab routine that some overweight physiotherapist gave you, right? Or would you rather develop skill and heal through a movement practice? And so I play foot bag, and that's done amazing things for my lower limbs, and I've been messing around with the bow staff a little bit for wrist warm up, for shoulder stuff. So yeah, think about if there's any area that you're injured in, or that you need to strengthen. Consider finding some sort of movement practice that emphasizes that joint or articulations or movement pattern. So maybe it's like I said, juggling, throwing things for the shoulders. Maybe it's striking, striking or combative, stand-up combative stuff. But yeah, I think that's a valuable framework because it still moves you forward while allowing you to heal.
And Justin, as someone who's broken their wrist twice, I couldn't agree more with you. Without adding movement, you become restricted in that pattern. Specific to, I broke my scaphoid, and what they do is they put you in a cast up past your elbow, and you remember this because I was in a full cast.
Yeah. I like to call it a cast. That cast was basically a mini arm coffin, is really what it was.
Oh yeah, and when you take off a cast, your muscle is gone. It has disappeared. And you're looking at an arm that is basically dead to you. It looks foreign. It's like an alien manifestation of what your limb once was. And you get back that muscle and tissue, connective tissue strength through moving.
That's right.
And if you want increased range of motion, you get that, again, from moving. So I've gone from basically being able to not bend my wrist at all to doing one-arm handstands on my formerly broken wrist.
Yeah.
And you get that through moving.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what you get through movement is a complexity that is very difficult to achieve through formalized rehab and prehab movements, and ultimately that's what gives your tissues that robustness, right? Because and I'm going to talk about this a little bit in the next episode, the second episode, which I'm going to do solo. But the idea of the SAID principle, or specific adaptation to impose demands, like if you don't cause some sort of specific stress, your body will not adapt. And so through movement, you tend to get those complex ranges of motion, all those nuanced articulations, and that cause these specific adaptations and allow you to, I think, improve at a much more rapid rate and be much more robust in the long run.
So we talked a lot about my training. What about your training, Justin?
Yeah. So I've kind of been in almost, it might be too much to say, like an existential training crisis, but I've just been struggling to fit all of the pieces together because there's so many great disciplines out there, but then like having, random training or having ADD in your training, I mean, it really gets you random results. It's very true that, you've got to have some sort of process, and you've got to have some sort of long-term commitment to certain activities or movements and things like that. So I've struggled because I've been trying to develop some of my tumbling skills. I've been trying to improve my mobility, some strength work, and then I've been a little bit experimental with recently tried my first breakdancing class, which was a lot of fun and pretty interesting. And at the end of it, we all had to do the breakdance circle. Like we were completely new. We just all had to jump in and go make something up, and it was kind of embarrassing because you don't really know anything. So you just kind of go do some weird stuff and then go back to the edge. Meanwhile, the teacher is just then he goes in and just completely crushes it and makes you feel bad about your life. But my point is, so I was struggling for a while with exactly how to organize and structure my training. And I feel like I'm sort of settling into it now. Really, I want my training sessions to I want each one to basically be a complete unit in and of itself. And this kind of goes into what you said, Sean, about within each session, you've got strength work, you've got mobility work, you've got any prehab and rehab, and then you've got skill work. And so that's what I've been trying to incorporate within each session. And how that typically looks for me is, I'll do bent arm, straight arm, and then lower body strength. And then I usually use foot bag as a warm up. And then then I'll start and go into my skill work. Then I'll do my strength workout. Then I'll do my mobility workout. And so, I really like each session to be a complete package, not only in that it covers all those areas, but then also from a structural balance perspective, if I'm doing pushing, I'm also doing pulling. So I always have, if I'm doing weighted pull-ups, I'm probably doing maybe overhead dumbbell press or, some handstand push-up progression. So I really just like each one to be almost a work of art, a complete package, to where I don't have to keep track of anything else in my mind. It's so I've got to make sure that in my next workout I hit, I do some external rotation and I hit pulling really hard, right? I like to just go in, do the whole workout, and then, really just make it a work of art.
I think that's very well said. Yeah, I view training very much the same way.
Yeah.
It also needs to be said that developing your own training practice is kind of an adventure.
Yeah.
And
it's really a build your own adventure.
It is, absolutely. And you talked about taking breakdancing, and one of my goals for this month is to take a couple ballet classes.
Cool.
It's something that I was too embarrassed to do when I was younger.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen a ballet, if you haven't seen the lead ballerina, it's, I went to the Denver production of, I think it was Swan Lake about a year ago, and the head male, is it ballerina? I think it's ballerina, maybe. The head ballet man was an incredible mover, an exquisite mover, and jacked to boot.
Yeah.
So that's that, and my, increased curiosity for the overlap between different moving modalities is what makes me want to continue to incorporate movements from, I guess, less commonly utilized places, like from ballet, from breakdancing, from capoeira, like into my practice, so I can continue to evolve as a mover.
Yeah, I think that's essential, and it's hard. I mean, it's very humbling. You can be a world-class like hand balancer, for example, and go into a breakdancing class or go into a ballet class and just be, completely humbled and or humiliated if you go in with the wrong frame of mind. But, so there's so much out there, and you really do have to sort of focus on one, improve that, commit to it for a while. And then once you've reached a satisfactory level, it's, don't be afraid to go out there and experiment with new things, because it's kind of like what Ito is doing. He's trying to bring together the wisdom of many different movement disciplines into one place, because it's like each one of those is a treasure trove, but they're so far apart that it's like hard to share the wealth, to share that information, because the people from all the different disciplines, it's like there's not really any one place where they can all just go and meet and convene together. That's more something that's done within the discipline as opposed to outside of the discipline.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is really important. And what I always think of is, like, what I immediately thought of was basically why you and I are employed as trainers, as movers, as coaches and instructors, is that there needs to be some type of programming to reel all that in, so people don't overwork particular muscle groups and become injured.
Yeah. So Sean, where in your own training, in your own experience with your students and stuff, where do you see the biggest need for help? Where do people have the biggest problems? Where do they need the most advice?
Wow, that's a big question. It's an important question, and for every client the answer is different. I have to say, bottom line is clients need help listening to their bodies. Yeah. And frequently they're either listening to information that's outside of their body, so they're getting too much feedback from external sources, whether that be from a buddy that just learned a couple CrossFit moves to a coworker that's on a fad diet, or to something their doctor recommends that doesn't actually suit their particular metabolism. Working to basically quiet the noise is something that I find really benefits all of my clients. Yeah.
So how do you then teach someone to become more in tune with, I guess, the messages their body is sending? Do you recommend some sort of, mindfulness practice, or what does that journey look like for people?
That's the crux. It really is. Usually it involves some type of meditation to become, I guess, more aware of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
It involves cutting out unnecessary supplements, unnecessary stressors like environmental stressors, lighting in particular, since in American culture in specific we spend so much time in front of screens and so much time not moving. It involves moving where previously there was no movement, and that can be encouraging clients to no longer sit for 8 to 12 hours a day. That's on the low end. To be honest. Let's say no longer sit for 16 hours a day. basically Americans sit on average between 16 and 18 hours a day.
Yeah, and it's let me just jump in there real quick. So I train at Apex Movement here in Denver. It's really a world-class gym. I definitely recommend everyone should make a visit. But, so I go in there and all the kids are in there playing, training, having a good time, and all their parents will just sit in the lobby doing, chatting and being mature adults, but they'll sit there for the entire 2 hours on their phone or some will actually have like human interaction with other people, which is actually, preferred to the iPhone. But yeah, so all the kids are there having a great time, and then all the adults like have this opportunity, literally just sitting right there. Like they could go and reach out and touch it, like the all the amazing fun tools they have there. But they just sit. They just, I don't know. It's not what adults do. Adults don't go play with the kids. They don't go experiment with their how their body moves and what their body is capable of. No, that's and that's sad. Like, and people pay a price for that. So, don't be that guy. Go play with your kids or girl. Go play with your kids and have some humility and have some fun. So, anyways, back to what you were saying.
I have to elaborate on that as well. That I coach boys gymnastics at Acrosport in San Francisco, and I see the exact same thing. And occasionally, you get a parent that's curious about doing an adult class, and I light up because that's what I love to teach. But when you get a new client, I'm sure it's the same for you. Someone that hasn't moved a lot in their adulthood, and they're lethargic. They're wondering, why is their energy constantly bad? Why is their sex life bad? They're breaking out. Those are all movement-related issues.
Yeah,
purely, and you don't see them in kids that move.
Yeah.
I mean, kids, boys especially, I just gotta say, are just full of energy all the time. Yeah. I mean, their number one problem is like reeling in their just overwhelming state of euphoria because they have so much energy.
Yeah. That's a hell of a problem.
Right? Can you imagine that? Just walking around with too much energy all day. So translating that to clients is a challenge, but a very necessary challenge that I feel obligated to, not even obligated. I feel privileged to share that with clients and welcome them to this space of increased energy, increased metabolic productivity.
Yeah, and I think I really consider movement to be the most fundamental form of freedom. Right, as your ability to move diminishes, as your physical capacities diminish, literally your possibilities as a human being narrow and narrow and narrow until you're just sitting on your couch, and then the ultimate sort of diminishing of possibilities is death, right? You literally can't, there's no more movement at all. And so I consider movement to be a way to maintain the most fundamental form of freedom. Really, I guess that's what I consider to be necessary to everyone. Like if you have no sex drive, if you have no energy, and you don't want to be intimate with your wife or girlfriend or boyfriend or husband, whatever it is, like your human experiences are dwindling away. Like you're not living to the capacity of your human experiences. If you don't have the strength or energy, or you're afraid you're going to throw out your back when you reach down to pick up your kid or your niece or your nephew or whatever it is, like your experience as a human being is narrowing. And so in some sort of more of a philosophical level perhaps, but I still consider that to maintain and to grow that freedom is really kind of a fundamental goal for me. And I'm young and I haven't experienced what it's like to be a bit older, but I don't want to. I want to hang on to that as long as I can. Just yesterday I was watching this YouTube video, this 70-year-old guy doing burpee thrusters with these dumbbells, and then weighted pull-ups, and then sprints. He would lay on the ground, he would roll over and get up and take off into a sprint 20 yards. This 7-year-old guy practically had a six-pack. It doesn't have to be that way. The story of a slow decline into super bad health. That doesn't have to be the story. Ideally, it's like that Chinese proverbs go. It's like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So it really doesn't matter whether you're 18 or 35 or 50 or 70. It's time to start like almost reclaiming your movement freedom, reclaiming your humanity through just getting out, doing like what Sean and I were talking about, playing with your kids, taking advantage of the movement opportunities you have, and really just exploring with your body, I think. So
it's never too late. Like I wrote programming for my 63-year-old father this morning.
Wow.
And
nice.
He's getting strong. We had him, he's up to, I think, 5 chin-ups, which is excellent from a strength perspective.
Amazing.
He's doing L-sits on parallettes. He's got his cast wall walks down. The
Wow.
guy's getting strong.
Wow.
And those are not things that he could do 6 weeks ago. Like,
yeah.
He's progressing over time, despite age.
That's amazing.
Not
yeah.
always as relevant as we assume.
Yeah. I think too often age is just a narrative that gives people an excuse to let themselves go, to stop trying new things, which is unfortunate. So let's see. Where I see people needing the most help is managing their stress, I think. And I just keep hearing it again and again. The research supports it that like meditation, some sort of mindfulness and breath work is just so fundamental. Like, it's really amazing. I was telling my dad a little bit about some of the meditation and breath work I was doing, and the effect it's been having on me. Like, you all probably know what it's like to sleep, go to sleep, you wake up, you're kind of, groggy, feeling like stiff, feeling maybe cold, whatever. And then, I'll go and do like 2 to 3 breath holds, and it's amazing what happens. All the blood vessels in your body open up. You feel limber, you feel supple, you feel energized. So I think that stress management, that mindfulness, that breath work, it's something that's so simple, and I think we almost take it for granted. The amazing power we have within our own body to control how we feel and basically how we're doing, what state of wellness we're in. So I really just would encourage everyone to begin some sort of meditation practice, and I can post some resources for that.
Well, Justin's also being very modest with his breath work. Justin, how long can you hold your breath?
I have hit 4 minutes.
4 minutes,
a couple of times. And I don't know. It was almost surprising to me as well. I did it in the morning. Well, and I'm at, here in Denver, we're at like 5,000 feet of elevation, so the air is a little thinner. I'm not sure what difference that would have made at sea level, but regardless, it was in the morning before I even got out of bed, in a dark room, on a completely empty stomach, and so yeah, I hit 4 minutes, and then I felt a little lightheaded after that.
Well, and I love what you're talking about in terms of strategies to de-stress. And I've actually noticed, just being on vacation in Denver this week and spending so much time outside, that I've been in an extreme sense of calm.
Yeah.
And it helps that, I don't have many of my normal obligations, but just being outside, earthing, I'm sure some of you have heard of it, just being connected to the earth, getting dirt on my hands, my feet, my face.
Yeah.
Has been just wonderfully restorative.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And if that's too difficult, I really encourage people to sort of, if you can't always go to nature or consistently go to nature, I definitely encourage you to sort of bring nature to you. And I've got really right here, got a bunch of house plants and greenery, and here in the opening up the windows, hearing the birds outside and stuff. So just a simple thing like that can be a mini retreat to sort of help alleviate some of those stresses and stuff. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Sean, or any other topics?
Yeah. I did want to say some of the things that I don't support that are kind of happening in the broad fitness industry, and that is, like, I don't support the idea that the sole purpose of moving is to improve aesthetics. And I think people get very confused and estranged from moving when they simply see moving as the thing you do to get chiseled and be sexy.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so much more than that. And creating a relationship with your body that empowers movement for the enjoyment of simply moving, I think is where I like to take my clients, and why I've chosen to be in this industry as a whole.
Yeah, I like that. And I would say for decades, I think our culture in particular has been caught up in the aesthetics of it. And, the front of all the magazines are massive like bodybuilders and super thin women. And the reality is, like, you'll probably feel better if you're neither of those things. You'll probably move better if you're neither of those things. And that's like one very skewed goal. Like, yeah, everyone wants to look good. Everyone wants to feel good, but to have that appearance without the function, that appearance can be very deceptive for sure. And moving more toward, like Sean said, enjoying movement just for the sake of moving. You don't have to have a reason. Find something you enjoy and really dig deep into that. And preferably do it, have someone else that you like hanging out with do it with you. I think that social component is also very, very key.
Enormous. That's why I've really fallen in love with climbing. You can't climb alone.
Yeah.
You can climb alone without ropes, but I don't. And being surrounded by people that have a similar mind and enjoy rock as well, it's been very awakening for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. I hope you found some useful stuff, learned a little bit about me and Sean. Many of you sent in ideas for guests that you'd like to see on the show, and I really appreciate that, hugely appreciate that, and I'm working hard to contact them and get them on the show. Let's see, you can find me at wellroundedathlete.net. Yeah, I'm rocking the .net, unfortunately. Also on Facebook, facebook.com/wellroundedathlete. Sean, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about you?
You can find me at redrevive.com. You can email me, Sean@redrevive.com, and find me on Facebook, Red Revive, or Sean Mapoles.
Cool. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, problems, ideas, whatever, I'd love to hear them. You can email me at justin@wellroundedathlete.net. Or if you have any suggestions or ideas for people you'd like to get on this show, tapping into the wealth of your guys' knowledge for people that inspire you and that are great sources of world-class knowledge, I'd love to have them on the show. Thanks again for listening.
Final note, I would just say, eat, sleep, move, repeat.